Topaz is a very unique character because she's the first one to come with a pet called Numby. Numby will also appear when we walk on the maps, which is so cute. Besides, having a companion with you when you explore or farm makes the game feel more immersive, especially when we don't have co-op like Genshin Impact. Numby is also very useful because when you use Topaz technique, Numby will automatically search for basic treasures and trotters within a set radius. Numby will also give you extra credits when you defeat the enemies after using Topaz technique. The maximum amount of credits you can get per day is 10,000. This is actually quite valuable for people who want to min-max because it will save you a decent amount of resins in the long run. If you are using Topaz technique and defeat the enemies in Simulator Universe, then you will get extra cosmic fragments and a small chance to get a random curio. Now let's take a look at Topaz base stats at level 80 and her nodes. From the nodes, she gets 12% crit rate, 22.4% fire damage, and 10% max HP. In the battle, Numby works kinda like Jingyuan's Lightning Lord in the sense that they have their own turns. The difference is that Numby will only attack one target, while Lightning Lord will attack all of the enemies. The way for us to determine which enemy Numby will attack is by using Topaz skill. Topaz skill will inflict a single target enemy with proof of death status and increasing the damage it takes from the follow-up attacks by 50% at level 10. This indicates that Topaz will have good synergy with other follow-up attack units like Clara and Jingyuan. She can buff their follow-up attack damage while providing some good amount of damage on her own. Using Topaz skill to deal damage is considered as a follow-up attack. When there is no enemy inflicted with proof of death, when an ally's turn starts, or when they take an action, Topaz will inflict random enemy with the proof of death. That means as long as you have Topaz on your team, you will always get the follow-up attack debuff on one enemy. When you use Topaz ultimate, Numby will enter the Windfall Bonanza state, and both of its damage multiplier and crit damage will increase. When enemies with the proof of death are hit with basic attack, skill, or ultimate, Numby's action will be advanced forward by 50%. You can see that Numby's attack animation will also change from Beyblade to Whirlwind. After doing 2 Whirlwind attacks, Numby will exit the Windfall Bonanza state. What's great about Topaz is when she gets CC'd, Numby won't miss his turn, unlike Lightning Lord. However, it will still disappear if Topaz dies. Topaz talent will keep Numby attacking the enemy inflicted with the proof of death, and whenever that afflicted enemy receives follow-up attacks from an ally, Numby's turn will get advanced forward by 50%. This is another indication that Topaz will have perfect synergy with characters that can do follow-up attacks. To sum up, Topaz can buff the damage of allies' follow-up attacks, and allies' follow-up attack will also buff Numby's damage by allowing it to attack more often. For her talent priorities, we want to go for skill, talent, ultimate, then basic attack. All of them are extremely important since they contribute to her overall damage, so I would recommend raising all of their levels as much as possible. Next, let's talk about her traces. Overdraft. When Topaz uses basic attack to deal damage, it will be considered as a follow-up attack. This means the entirety of Topaz attack are considered as a follow-up attacks. This may sound a little underwhelming at first, but this trace opens up so many doors for Topaz to be played in many different roles, because this allows her basic attack to take advantage of her skill, which we've already went over how great it is for follow-up damage. This ability is partly why Topaz is such an interesting character conceptually, and this is because she can be played in a hyper carry role, or as a dual DPS carry in a team with a character like Clara, and even as a complete skill point efficient 4 slot in teams with Topaz just basic attacking, generally skill points for the team while it's also contributing her own damage. The main and only real downside to using her basic attack over her skill besides the damage loss is energy, as Topaz ultimate pretty much nearly doubles her damage, so outside of niche scenarios, you generally want to use her skill as many times as possible. Next one is Financial Turmoil. This increases Topaz and Numby's damage dealt to enemy targets with the fire weakness by 15%. Since most likely you'll be running Topaz into fire weak enemies, this is just some free extra damage for Topaz. Lastly, Technical Adjustment. After Numby uses an attack while in the Windfall Bonanza state, Topaz additionally regenerates 10 energy. So, Numby will use 2 attacks before the state ends. That means every time Topaz uses her ult, she is going to generate 20 energy back. Her ult costs 130 energy, so with this ability unlocked, her ult cost becomes 110. Now, let's talk about her Lightcones. Her signature gives unconditional 18% crit rate and 30% follow-up attack damage bonus. Not only that, but also applies a tame stack to the enemy, stacking up to 2 stacks, and each of this time stack gives 12% crit damage to your allies' follow-up attacks if they attack the enemy affected to it. It means this Lightcone will also buff your team, giving them a total of 24% crit damage for their follow-up attacks. Because of the bonuses, this Lightcone provides for both Topaz and the team. I would dare to say this is the best limited Lightcone for damage dealers in the game up until now. This Lightcone will be a very good investment for your account. Cruising in the Stellar Sea is one of her best non-signature option in terms of damage. With this passive up, it is a fine option for Topaz as a whole. Not to mention that you can also get it for free up to S5. Swordplay is another one of her best non-signature options and her best 4 stars Lightcone. At R5, it deals around 10% less damage than her signature, and since Topaz follow-up hits are multi-hit, she can stack all the passive almost immediately. Only Silence Remains is an okay 4 stars option if you don't have both Swordplay and Cruising in the Stellar Sea. Sleep Like the Dead is also another okay option. It deals 7% less damage than Only Silence Remains with its passive active. You can get this Lightcone by trading 600 Undying Starlight in the shop. However, I strongly discourage you to do that, since you can get the Cruising in the Stellar Sea from the Herta shop for free. Next, we'll talk about her relics. Her current best in slot is surprisingly Quantum Set, which kinda hurts to say because she can't utilize the quantum damage bonus. Defense Shred is too valuable for damage increase. Her second best is 2-piece Fire and 2-piece Musketeer. Without the quantum weakness, the Quantum Set deals like 1% less damage than the 2-piece, and with the quantum weakness, it deals 6% more damage. I hope we will get a new relic set for Topaz in the future where she can utilize all of its passives. For the chest piece, you want to go for either crit rate or crit damage depending on your crit ratio. Always try to aim for 1 to 2. And for the boots, you can either use speed or attack boots. Just pick the one with the better substats and you're good to go. But remember that generally speed boots are better in comps without Asta, and attack boots are better in comps with Asta. For the planar ornaments, you want to go for Inner Sasoto because it gives unconditional crit rate and more damage for follow-up attacks, which will buff Topaz's entire kit. For the second option, you can also go for Space Sealing Station. Sasoto is slightly better, but they're close enough to call them interchangeable. For the orb, you want to go for fire damage bonus. You can use attack orb if that's your only choice, but I suggest changing to fire orb ASAP. For rope, you 100% want to go for attack rope. Some people might recommend you to use ER so that Topaz can use her ult more often. I want to stress that I don't recommend you doing that because Topaz won't have ER issue, especially with the help of her own traces that gives her a total of 20 energy back when Numby attacks after she uses her ult. Next, let's talk about her teams and playstyles. We have something that is called Support Pass Core. This team consists of Tingyun, Jingyuan, Topaz, and 1 sustain unit. Topaz in this team is mostly a basic attacker because she'll be generating skill point for Jingyuan whilst buffing his follow-up attacks. This is why the team is called Support Pass Core. This is arguably Jingyuan's best team for single target because with Topaz's existence, Jingyuan gets an indirect buff. So, for you guys who wants to make your Jingyuan stronger, you can pull for Topaz. The next one is called Dual DPT Core. This team consists of Tingyun, Topaz, Clara, and 1 sustain. Tingyun can be swapped out for Asta, Bronya, or even Yukong in some cases. It is called as Dual DPT Core because both Topaz and Clara will be the damage dealers in the team and they will buff each other. Topaz will buff Clara's follow-up attacks, and Clara's counters will make Numby get its turn faster. Swapping out Clara for the future follow-up damage dealer will be really good too. Lastly, there is the Hyper Carry Core. In this team, all the support units will be buffing Topaz's personal damage, making her the hyper carry in the team. This team consists of Tingyun, Topaz, Asta, and 1 sustain. You can also use other support characters like Bronya, Pella, or Silver Wolf instead of Tingyun and Asta. However, Tingyun and Asta contributes a lot to Topaz's hyper carry team and are overall her best supports, which is why I definitely recommend you to use them if possible. Alright, let's take a look at the Eidolons. E1. This adds a new status called the Debtor State when enemies inflicted by Proof of Debt receive follow-up attacks. This can take effect only once within a single action. The Debtor State makes the enemies take 25% crit damage for follow-up attacks stacking up to 2 times and will be removed when Proof of Debt expires. That's a 50% crit damage buff for your team follow-up attacks, which is a marginal increase for Topaz's own damage. This ultimately provides tons of value to the entire team, making this Eidolon arguably her best one, and it also provides more for her and your team than her signature Lightcone. E2 gives her 5 energy whenever Numby stacks. This will make her rotation goes a lot smoother because she will be able to use her ult more consistently. E3 provides skill level +2 and basic attack level 1. More skill level means more follow attack damage increase, so this will buff both Topaz and your team. E4 advances Topaz's action by 20% whenever Numby starts his turn. This is a simple yet effective Eidolon because more turns means more damage and more energy. It increases Topaz's personal damage around 10% over her E3. E5 gives ultimate level +2 and talent level +2. This Eidolon will increase Topaz's personal damage up to 10% over E4. Finally, E6. This gives Numby extra whirlwind attack after Topaz uses her ult and increases its fire res penetration. This Eidolon will change her playstyle as it enables her to have insane uptime on her ultimate. In addition, Elemental Shred or Penetration is really hard to find in the current state of the game. Silver Wolf, Pela E4, Silly's Trace, and Locha's E6 are the only X's we have at the moment. And some of those require big investments because they are limited 5 stars. This makes her E6 really valuable as it increases her own overall damage up to 43%. Topaz is the first unit that can buff follow-up attacks. This gives her a lot of value for incoming future follow-up damage dealers. Not to mention that she also has good personal damage, so you can use her as a sub-damage dealer in your team. When Hoyoverse releases more follow-up attack characters, it will indirectly make Topaz more valuable. If you want to invest in a follow-up team, then you can't go wrong with Topaz. I am already planning to use Topaz with my Jingyuan, so nobody can make fun of my general anymore. What is your thought on Topaz? Do you like her? I like her so much. Her design is great. Her future potential is also bright. I hope you guys found this video useful and somehow entertaining. And if you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to my channel with the large settings on, and I'll see you in the next one.